It's Labor Day. It's suppose like we are like celebrating whatever hard work you are doing through the year and whatever you are putting effort into, and remind yourself that you deserve a time to rethink, reevaluate, or celebrate. So wherever you are at, it's based on your aspiration, what you want next, or where you are at in life. So yeah, I am committed to another intersectionality. Human behavior can be analyzed from different perspective. My focus is behavior neuroscience and the neurobiology of the behavior. So how your body, how your whole systems interact with the environment, what our factors are integrated within that, your developmental stage, your heritable your heritable biomarkers. And as I said before, you are not what you already said that you are destined to. You are dynamic, you are changeable, you are in a state of continuous renovation, construction and deconstruction. And the majority, like, it is based on where you are at mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Whatever your state at, it impacts what's next. So when you understand the human life, it has to come with its complexity, with its multifactorial and multifaceted phases of interpretation. And it is based on your background, of like where you are at, of your knowledge about the human condition, what do you understand about it, how you perceive it, how you interact with it. So that will determine a lot of decision making. You are constantly making decisions based on the input from the visual cortex and the peripheral nervous system. So you are always like input, and in a constant state of decision making, consciously and subconsciously. However, there are things that you cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore it because it is part, like, integral, or part and parcel in the human condition, and that is the interpersonal relationships. So it is based on your culture, play a lot of integration within understanding the interpersonal relationships. But when it is backed with the science to understand, does this serve the health span, the well-being, the mental stability, that whatever. Because when you have an integrated central nervous system, you have balance, you have awareness, you have ability to observe and not observe, and integrate what you learn in whatever skills you have, and you grow from it. However, if this awareness is not in place, that is when we say from early age, it is every phase is shaped by the environment. Therefore, there is, we call it, the external locus of control. That means life happened to you, and instead of like the internal locus of control, I am aware, I take responsibility in what had have happened or took place. So we have this another thing, internal locus of control and external locus of control, and this is so common in the marshmallow experiment. I'm gonna write this because the delayed gratification of reward, like, so imagine how this is conditioning, part of the conditioning of the behavior. How far it take you, like, say, I am gonna give you this reward if you wait this amount of money, or sorry, amount of time, or I'm gonna give you this reward um, if you like stay longer than this time. Okay, so it is like, you choose instant gratification, or easy gain, or short time gain, rather than you started to consider your options and your possibilities, and you started to look for the long term gain, and that will delay your gratification to just not to rush into decisions. And we are in constant, that is part of the conditioning, even in adulthood. It is based on the programming and where you are at, that will depend your gratification to everything around you. If there is no filters, if there are no filters, there is the prefrontal cortex is still in development. There is the gratification is still in high risk or in a test. So our perceptions impact our attenuation or our gratification for taking decisions, or the hostility, or the calm, or the delayed, or the calculated, or whatever. It is all based on your internal locus of control and external locus of control, and your delayed or your gratification to anything happen around you and within you. If you are hungry, you want to eat anything, you have no you are not picky. Okay, so you're hungry, you want to feel okay, I'm hungry, so this will impact your level of energy. However, if you are hungry and you are able to delay that instant gratification into any food, that will give you another internal locus of control capacity. So, and many times it is based as well what is happening around you, the before, the during, and the after. So there are multiple factors to be considered. So at the same time, what are the patterns that of the behavior? What is the novelty of the behavior? So it's a lot of things, but I see what happened in the mind and the body state right now. What is happening right now internally that contributed to what I see in front of my eyes. I'm gonna try to see the marshmallow experiment, and this is for the children. So, if you would like to understand how the child, the instant gratification or delayed gratification for reward, they are gonna understand exactly their limbic system, how it's in place. The so this was for the Stanford marshmallow. Yeah, Stanford marshmallow test of delayed. This is 1970. So imagine still like we would try to understand how the reward system, because it based on everything. And with human behavior, especially with negative consequences, we understand to look for the beneficiary. So what benefit, what reward, and how their brain mechanism is functioning, and that's impact the instant decision and the the instant gratification of jumping into action. And it all goes back to the central nervous system and the hyper activation of the limbic system, or it is in balance. I sent the experiment in the chat. Yes, the Stanford marshmallow experiment. This is one of the experiments, like highly famous in the field of psychology, that we understand those who rush to decisions and those who would like to consider. And with the complexity of the factors as well, understand what the context in which, right now we focus on the context in which the behavior occurred. So we have to understand it, because that what give us the clarity and what exactly happened behind the scene. So today, as it is still, we are human beings, we are social beings, so we are meant to interact, and that is why God gave us the prefrontal cortex. That is the higher cognition and metacognition level of the human capacity of the human brain. So we are not hunter, like we call it the selection, the survival of the fittest. That is the animal kingdom, the survival of the fittest. Even some still acting from that, the survival of the fittest, with the animal kingdom principle. And that is when we say I would like to understand how to elevate the human brain, how to elevate the status that God has created us so differently, because he said you will subdue everything that the other creatures, you will subdue. So he made you steward on other creatures to take care of, or to know how they function, and to understand your zone of mechanism and their zone of mechanism as well. What habitat, what environment they survive, because the animal live on the survival. So you see how it goes. And one of the questions I'm asking, if the animal has been under stress and survival, will this impact humans when they consume? But interestingly, that the animals, they don't have, that's why the prefrontal cortex. So every behavior is the moment, in the moment. So this is a thing that really interesting that I know. So they are not storing all this long-term memory. So they are acting from short-term memory. And that was interesting for me. However, there are other things in the animal model to understand that correlate with humans, as reptilian mammalian brain, that is the survival brain, and that is the human, and the survival, the stability, the safety, the shelter, the physical. Yeah, so this is what the lower level of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. But we explore that beyond with the human condition. We go beyond that. Yes, there are mechanisms for the survival. However, we are supposed to, our understanding and our perception and our awareness and our memory and our skills and about our abilities and gifts can frame different mechanisms from the animal kingdom or the behavior of it. But however, still scientists study the animal model first and then compare it with the human model and see what is the commonality and what is happening here that integrate this action, what's happening in the environment. So I am continuing part 8, but the topic I am staying with, because we are social beings, and which is impacting, that is the bottom up level or approach from understanding the human condition. It's one behavior, but however, it implicates an array of other behaviors and other types and modalities with interaction with environment, cluster personality, immune system, your central nervous system, and so on and so on within the environment you are in. So in part 8, I'm grateful I reached part 8 right now. I'm gonna continue in the intersectionality of aggression with other concepts, with other phenomena, with other expressions and factors. So I hope we are learning something through this. So I'm gonna start my part 8. It is uh, the taxonomy. We dealt with the neuroanatomy of aggression. Now the taxonomy of aggression. So aggression is a multidimensional construct that varies in form, function, visibility, intent, interpersonal strategy, and developmental context. Researchers have defined multiple categories for aggression. We have overt, covert, reactive, proactive, direct, indirect, physical, relational, instrumental, hostile, coercive, persuasive, malignant, passive. And when it comes to overt aggression, this is direct, observable, act intended to cause harm, like hitting, yelling, and threatening. For example, punching a peer, shouting threats, pushing someone. And these are part of microaggressions that if the person with a history of trauma and dysregulated central nervous system, this accumulate and build up over time. And with their developmental stages, it can lead to negative consequences to both parties. So, more commonly associated with males, particularly in early and middle childhood, often linked to externalized disorder like ADHD and conduct disorders. Covert aggression, hidden, concealed, or deceptive. These are the one who they don't forget the harm or the hurt or the hate. They can, like, the avengers, or the one who can take revenge from others. Hidden, concealed, or deceptive behaviors aimed at harm, often avoiding detection. For example, lying, sabotaging, manipulating situations to cause harm without being caught. And this is part of the personality that they are really good at harming others, but they are so clever that to the limit that they cannot be caught. Increases, this is the cognitive intelligence, not emotional intelligence. Increases during adolescence as social cognition becomes more sophisticated, stronger in callous unintentional traits and proactive aggression, without, and this is part of the antisocial and psychopathy. Subtle aggression, nuanced and indirect behavior that communicates hostility or dominance without overt conflict. For example, eye rolling, sarcasm, exclusion, backhanded compliments used to maintain dominance hierarchies while preserving outward social norms. Common in middle school and high school peer groups, particularly among girls. And when we see the mean girl club, and this is for the dominance and gaining control over the tribal survival, and this continuous female like across their life. So they look for this and they have this cluster of mean girls club. And that is their joy. Malignant aggression, aggression characterized by gratuitous cruelty, often with sadistic or dehumanizing elements. For example, torturing, humiliation for pleasure, prolonged suffering, infliction. It is manifested in malignant narcissism, sadistic personality, severe antisociality. The neurobiological of this type of aggression, impaired empathy system, low affective resonance. Abrasive aggression, aggression expressed as a reaction to perceived threat or discomfort, often involving avoidance or self-defense motives. For example, a child hates when overwhelmed, a person that is the body is protecting, a reactive response. A person lashes out when emotionally cornered. High in reactive aggression linked to hyper arousal and emotional dysregulation. Heightened amygdala and activation under social threats. And this is when we see with the victim or the target, when they feel under threat, their amygdala activation is heightened. They have overactive amygdala, overactive immune response, and the stress response. So they can lash out, or they can respond, or can react to the perceived threat to protect or to defend. This is a defense mechanism. Coercive aggression, aggression aimed at forcing compliance, often escalating in response to resistance. A child screams until a parent gives in. Intimate partner use threats to control. Coercion theory, Peterson, 1982, describes the reinforcement cycle in family dynamics, predictive of conduct problems and criminality. And unfortunately, we say that when it happens within a family or a closed circle, it is perceived as it is their own business. They have to handle it. Reactive aggression, impulsive, emotional charged aggression in response to provocation or perceived threats. For example, hitting when teased, verbal outburst when insulted. That is the lack of control, or the cross of boundaries. There is no boundaries in relationships. So they hit whenever they want, and they use the verbal outburst when they are insulted. Link it to heightened amygdala activity and cortisol dysregulation, common in ODD and PTSD and anxiety-related conditions. Proactive aggression, deliberate, goal-directed aggression used to obtain a desired outcome that is calculated and strategic. And it happen incrementally and specific times. And uh, nationwide, there are many incidents like this. Bullying for status, using intimidation to gain money, linked to reduce the empathy, low psychological arousal, and callous and unemotional traits. You're not going to say, everyone, I would like to know your brain so I can understand exactly what is the brain abnormalities, function, and structure, so I can understand the person that I am dealing with. We don't have this principle. But the body language, their pattern of relationships, indicators for red flags or heightened awareness. Relational aggression intended to harm someone's relationships or social standing, like gossiping, excluding other, manipulating friendship. Uh, More common in girls during adolescence, and it can, because it's here, look at the beneficiary and at the same time the intention and the motive. If it serves a function, it is a maladaptive behavior. It is continuous unless anyone address it, because it impact others negatively. Link it to depression, anxiety, and peer rejection. Instrumental aggression used as a means to an end, not primarily to harm, but to achieve a goal. Robbing a store, hitting to take a toy, that is cold, bland, and goal oriented. That is proactive aggression. That is part is correlated with the psychopathy and antisocial. Passive aggressive behavior, indirect resistance to demands or avoidance of direct confirmation, like procrastination, intentional inefficiency, backhanded sabotage, often rooted in powerlessness or avoidance tendencies. Common in workplace conflict and romantic relationships, because when there is no boundaries, the fear is taking over of the relationship dynamic or the power dynamic. So fear is the core emotion that is taking place. Verbal aggression, use of words to cause harm through threats, insults, sarcasm. For example, name calling, threats, abusive language, often overlaps with cyber aggression or public shaming. Poor risk factors, poor impulse control, learned family communication patterns. So whatever is male adaptive, it has started at early age. It has been witnessed, it has been modeled, it has been shaped by the environment. So it became the norm, or it became the sense of proving oneself, or attain power, control, and authority, or have their own way of dominance. So cyber aggression enacted via digital or social media platforms. We understand now that most of the time of children and adolescents and young adults spent with their cell phones. But what they are watching, what they are communicating, who is reaching out to them, that can change entirely the whole person without without a trace, as I say, without a trace, because it's all with the platform of the digital. It is manipulating the neurocircuits of the brain, that is automatically changing the electrobiochemical of the body and the mind, and then leading to either aggressive behaviors, antisocial behaviors, conflicting, and other what we call manipulative dark behaviors. It's only within the text or the image. For example, doxing, harassment, spreading harmful rumors online, anonymity, and especially when people send with anonymous, so that their name is not known, so that give them, and mostly the dark tetrad, they use anonymous, or they don't give their name, or they make fake profile, a fake profile that completely, it is not what you think you are interacting with. It's an overt, it's a complete different dynamic is taking place. But however, it takes time till they manipulate the neurocircuits of the child or the adolescent or young adult brain, leading to other risky behaviors. Amplifications, preeminence, link it to suicidality, especially in adolescence. And prefrontal cortex is not fully, and many now think that their social media, that whatever they read, whatever they perceive is real. We live in the deep fakes era, so not everything is published or said or announced is real. However, is it changing the neurochemistry of the human brain and the bias system, consequently. So let's see here, for example, aggression into person. How can we fit this, all these types of aggression into cluster personality disorders A, B, and C? For A, odd or eccentric, it's a paranoid, schizo or schizotypal. So aggression patterns are more prone to reactive, coercive aggression, the type A, driven by or personality cluster A, driven by suspicion or social withdrawal, usually overt or subtle hostility characterized by mistrust. Cluster B, dramatic, emotional, antisocial, borderline, narcissistic, and histrionic. Central cluster for aggression. Well, as I said, if you would like to really like over like over more than more than 70 or 80% cluster B. Most of the conflicts, most of the incidents that can lead to chronic illness and psychiatric conditions, it is within the cluster of the cluster personality B. They can engage in proactive, covert, malignant aggression, manipulative, and instrumental. So it is that is the they can show reactive, overt aggression fueled by emotional dysregulation, impulsivity, antagonism, and callousness. Verbal or relational aggression rooted in narcissistic injury and entitlement of malignant or overt. And we remember that the narcissistic is think that the person has to do this because they owe them this, they have to do it. They are cluster C, they are anxious, fearful, avoidant, dependent, obsessive compulsive, heavy on subtle and covert aggression, passive aggression, silent resentment, indirect resistance tied to fear of criticism or loss of control. For We see the overt physical or verbal aggression emerges as early as infancy, peaks around the ages 2 and 3, then declines into school years. Covert aggression surfaces later, often in elementary and middle school. Initial behaviors include stealing or lying over time, escalate toward the antisocial acts. Notably, boys with increasing covert aggression trajectories more likely to reoffend later. Relational and subtle aggression appears in the age of 3, ignoring peers, evolves through elementary school to complex forms, exclusion, gossip, and peaks during adolescence, especially among girls using social media. Functional trajectories of overt and covert versus reactive and proactive. Longitudinal studies show diverse co-occurring developmental pathways, decreasing reactive overt aggression alongside increasing instrumental relational aggression in adolescence. Instrumental, that is a red flag. Gender differences in trajectories, a four trajectory model of overt aggression, low increasing adolescence onset, childhood limited, and high stable, revealed that romantic involvement notably influenced girls' adolescence onset of aggression. Aggression generally declines during adolescence due to developmental gains in self-regulation, though, and the marshmallow experiment can be a good indicator in that for the short term gain and the long term gain, what the choice. So, in self regulation, though stable high aggression classes remain a risk group. The integration, there is an integration between gender responsive intervention implication. Girls more likely to engage in relational. So in middle and high school, we say it like the mean girl club. The mostly it's around relationships. So of criticism, who's their opponent, who's the competitive, and it goes like this. And when it doesn't have this regulation, it presents a dysregulated or a malfunctioning interpersonal relationship across their adulthood progress or development. So the understanding the healthier personal relationship, interpersonal relationships, it has to come first from modeling from responsible adults. But if this is not happening, so what are the alternative? Because the main thing is whatever the behavior is taking, relationships is a component of it, unfortunately. Subtle aggression emerging earlier than boys. Interventions should, even girls, they give the boys the attention that they don't come along because of the boy. Yeah. So they set the standard that they are fighting for this. So they give the standards, and that is why it gives the manipulator the tool to use it against them. So what do you expect? It's just the dynamic and the understanding of relationships. It makes me laugh when we understand that the middle and the high school, and how many years is wasted, how many years of unreliable emotions, untrusted emotions, and it shaped the neurocircuitry of the brain, and it shaped the changes in the bio system, the hormonal, the pruning, everything like that, and it is left like this and not addressed like. More objectively, it is not boys and girls are fighting over who can win. it is a life that is progressing, that is a life is in development. And as long as it's still there is no responsibility in their hands, everything can be deviated from its norm. So more likely to engage in relational subtle aggression emerging earlier than boys. Interventions should focus on social emotional learning, relational repair, peer acceptance, and group based relation skills. And I have a comment on that I don't know what to say. So, culturally, we are diverse, we are complex, everybody has carrying a different tapestry from the other. You are either you are one race or ethnicity, or you are mixed races, or they are multiracial. So it is like the genes has component of many things. So that it's not only your biology, it is what cultural beliefs and attitudes and perceptual experiences you have gained or earned that will bring some contradictory to the other members of the group or the other members of your community. And this is when we say, when we come to the stereotyping and we add another layer of emerging of aggression, stereotyping, labeling, intimidating, whatever it is dynamic is taking, but taking, we are adding, we are proving, we are adding another layer for whatever their the behavioral mechanisms are ready to, or their environment is ready for, or their level of training, it has started to build up another thing. So unless we are aware that of the diverse of the diversity, why we accepted it from the beginning, why we accepted this diversity from the beginning, if we are after accepting it, we are gonna, it's as if like it is the love hate relationship, the love hate relationship. I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. So there is no stand, there is no ground. And it creates more confusion. And at the same time, it doesn't reach a solution or a clarity for any individual to walk through it. It is non-linear, yes. But why we accepted this diverse, complex tapestry of population, to next we are fighting one another or we are conflicting one another. It doesn't make sense unless you say there is a separation between the main goal of this perceptual experience and the actual systemic or societal the societal hierarchy or the infrastructure of the society that determine another. It depends on the culture, subculture, in group, out group, and what is the blueprint in each level. And at the same time, it's is it tribal survival, or it is harmony, or it is, there is a lot of dynamics are taking place. However, we understand that the higher the human brain is developed, the more the person is elevated from the level of stirring a conflict or being in compliance with a conflict. So it is raising the standard into elevation of the human brain. That is when we understand what needs to be done here, not who did it or why they did it. And that is another contextual. But however, we are from these I explained before, the human ecological system, it is from the meso to macro, and from micro to macro. So this is all from the ground up in the nucleus of the family and friends and peers. Exactly what your goal, why you are here on this land, why you are here in this life. It presents you with perspectives that, oh my goodness, am I here looking to fight? And that is a waste. That is a waste. I am here to infatuate or imagine scenarios that doesn't take place in reality. That is a really a life waste. All of this life waste. Imagine if you take an inventory for your one day to see what really add value to your day and what take value out of your day. So you become self-aware, you understand what add value, you invite what doesn't add value. You started to say the power of no. So you started to say no, and you started to understand your boundaries, understand what you need to focus on. You understand what is the most valuable scope of focus, so you can attain your health and well-being, because overall you are gonna be you with all the the outcomes of whatever you invited into your environment or into your mind or into your body. All of this will accumulate. Many have already we see it in the burden of disease. It is it's a state of human being. We don't want it anymore. I don't want it for me. Yeah, so it I don't wish it on anyone anymore. The suffering, the pain, the struggle, and all of that, I don't wish it on anybody anymore. So we have to be aware what component in place, and what is my goal, what is my motive, what is my intention, what adds value, does it serve you? Is it that is it the survival state of action, or it is elevating my I'm working to thrive in an environment that nurture and guide, and uh, it's adding value to my health and well-being. How can we do that? That is self-awareness. uh, at early age, we need it at early age. So here, so you see the girls, the mean girl club, and the boys overt reactive and covert aggression emerges early. Interventions should target impulse control, moral reasoning, and later covert antisocial behaviors often better addressed via behavioral problem solving and accountability models, and that is the neocortex. And it is, for me, how many years, more than a decade, I say focus on the neocortex. I focus on the neocortex with problem solving, critical thinking, and challenging their abilities with metacognitive scenarios. That when you build a strong prefrontal cortex, many don't understand. Many we are not raised to understand that the role of these skills and abilities to be utilized. Learning an instrument by itself, it started to make this integration between left hemisphere and right hemisphere, and leading into the regulation of the central nervous system. So there are lots of things we redirect our attention to, rather than the natural animal brain is the mean girls club, and the muscle struggle or muscle display boys club. So we see that this plays at early age, and if this is the dynamic of life, so what is the difference between the human kingdom and the animal kingdom? So for some, to identify distinct aggressions trajectory class, like early overt and late adolescence relational persistent covert, you could examine cluster B traits: antagonism, callousness, impulsive dysregulation, and the predictors of high proactive aggression classes. Antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorders, because they feel that the world is happening to them and no one loves them or care for them, but they are not taking it okay. So how can I bring this love into myself? How can I pay attention to myself? And how can I grow from this? And what skills I want to focus on? They put their revenge on the other. So, and that for them is releasing their internal pain and sense of abandonment, deprivation, or untrustworthiness. Cluster C tendencies, social anxiety inhibition. Imagine somebody so sensitive and so delicate, and they see all these antisocial behaviors in front of them and highly aggressive. Do you think they are uh, right away? Your anxiety will be the first defense of your immune system. So, predicting passive or relational aggression trajectories, you're gonna still to be on alert or walking on eggshells, and this is not a healthy state. Cluster A traits, predicting reactive, suspicious driven trajectories. Personality cluster traits as covariates can map who follow which aggression trajectory type, and gender can moderate these patterns. There are some basic trajectories I'd like again um, to shed the lights on is physical aggression, direct harm through body force. Relation or social aggression, harming others via relationships, status, or social exclusion, can be proactive, instrumental, bland, and goal oriented, or reactive, impulsive in response to perceived threat. Reactive versus proactive aggression: reactive is impulsive and emotion driven, proactive is deliberate and goal directed. Intensity and severity ranges from mild verbal to relational acts to severe physical or episodic explosive aggression, like intermittent explosive disorder. Clinical severity often corresponded to diagnosable disorders like borderline personality disorder related aggression, and they thrive on creating the conflict, because this will give them this state of sense of they are seeking the validations of others, or they thrive on causing this irritability or instability state of the emotional, the swing, the need to bring it. That is the fear of abandonment. I am not worthy of love. Early childhood physical aggression peaks at said roughly 2 to 3, declines with itself regularly. Development in early regulatory development, persist aggression signal dysregulation risk. Adolescence and adulthood relational aggression, especially salient among peers and in workplace context. So once we have into childhood and adolescence and young adult, older adult, it's all interrelational. So early age, we look at the trauma, attachment style, and the environment, and that is what dysregulate and brought this concept about who the person is within the world and how can they relate through modeling, through imitation, through the observation as well, or curiosity. They like to to push boundaries or to test boundaries. Intersectionality for cluster A, odd is eccentric, less directly tied to classic aggression, but may show indirect social withdrawal or mistrust related to hostility. So cluster B, dramatic emotional, most strongly associated with aggression, especially borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. For borderline personality disorder, aggression driven by affective dysregulation, the regulation of their emotion, rejection sensitivity, they are afraid to be abandoned. So instead, you are gonna leave me, I am gonna leave you, but in a dramatic way. And anger, shame, reactivity. Some studies show perceived rejection, negative effect, particularly anger, aggressive urges, behaviors with borderline personality disorder. The severity intensify this way. Neurological underpinning include frontal limbic imbalance, impulsivity, especially with not fully developed prefrontal cortex. There is a higher impulsivity, threat hypersensitivity. Sensitivity. So if the person cellular mechanism is acting from stress response and the perceived threat is stress and reality, that is the normal for their cellular mechanism. So they are hypersensitive to their environment. But however, the lack of awareness and the misunderstanding from everyone around them, they may escalate it and they may add fuel to the fire. So that is when we say awareness and understanding comes at the forefront from early age. Understand that your electropyochemically doesn't act spontaneously. There is input from the environment, and what highly correlated with this electrobiochemical changes is interpersonal relationships. That is the core point of you have a healthy life or unhealthy life, you have a regulated life or a dysfunctional life. So that will build up on many things, and unfortunately that put the person into high subjective vulnerability, and that will add to the manipulator to take advantage of and increase the state of heightened hypersensitivity or heightened perceived threat. So the vicious cycles go and go and go, and that is what we say. We don't understand who we are around, what we are dealing with. The main thing is understanding yourself, self aware, your alignment, your regulation of your central nervous system, and what works for you, what does not work for you, and how to keep your boundaries. So that is essential. With other antisocial, they have no boundaries. They don't know, they don't want to keep it, they push it. It gives them this infuse of like the intensity of the emotions. The low empathy, disrupted self, other boundaries. In antisocial personality disorder, aggression often more instrumental, callous type hypoempathy, and the different emotional triggers. often comorbid with the personal, that is the intermittent explosive disorder, is comorbid with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, represents extreme impulsive aggression and shares frontal limbic and white matter abnormalities. We say neuroimaging and serologic testings can improve and understand what intervention it can take place based on their neurodevelopmental stage. Cluster C, anxious and fearful, avoidant, dependent. Aggression may be more passive aggressive. Conflict avoidance, though research is less extensive. So cluster C, as stated before, cluster A and cluster C, the research is still in infancy, not too much information about these two clusters. However, we would like to understand the cluster C for their sensitivity to the environment and how they express their patterns of aggression and how it impacts on their brain and body systems. There are like we understand for the integration, whatever takes place of emotions, if it is negative emotions, and I said it before, my focus on negative emotions because these are the dynamics that is, as I say, why these negative emotions, either they are a product of an incident like really the negative emotions is a natural flaw or development of the incidents, or it is instrumentally used for manipulation, for control, for dominance to impact the target. And this what add the allostatic load and the excitotoxicity load, which increase first the gut-brain axis. This is immune response and stress response. So, and then it is all what happened next over time based on the reactivity or proactivity of these emotions, and it build the person a state of disease. So when you understand not only what you eat, not only what you drink, but your emotions, your interpersonal relationships impact, like, say, two-thirds of who you are right now and who you are going to be in 5 years and 10 years. Unless you are aware of these dynamics and what human mean, I'm persisting on it. It came to me and like in my face like this. Everyone need to ask, who am I? Why am I? And what am I? And how am I? You know, like the every um, every question of the scientific method reflected on yourself to see a mirror of who you are. Are you happy with your outcomes? Are you happy with what you are drawing from this information when you sit internally and you focus and answer? Be honest with yourself first and be true to yourself, so we all know partial truth, not the whole truth. We see the perceived truth because sometimes the memory is interrupted or fragmented with other, because even the mentioning of the incident or an event or someone, it can trigger electropyochemical reaction into the person. And here we see as well the motive and the intention of the behavior. It is used to manipulate, control, power, and breaking down the target, or it is what the question was really meant for the question. So it is based on who is asking the questions, what is the context of the question, and how the answer and the perceived of the answer, the perception of the answer. So I'm saying whatever, whatever comes through your mind, or your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your interaction, your experiences, all of this, all of this, it's an shipping an immune response spontaneously. Everything is working with just signaling the antenna. So, what are the environmental influences, immune system regulation? And I stated before, I'm going to bring a little bit about the cascade complement. Childhood trauma, harsh parenting, violence exposure, increased aggression, risk across the lifespan, social stress, hostile relationships, slow healing, dysregulated cytokines, and immune responses. With aggression, pro-inflammatory cytokines, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and C-reactive protein elevated in individuals with high trait aggression, and in disorders like intermittent explosive disorder and psychosis. Immune challenges, interferon, neutropenic factor alpha, and therapy can trigger irritability and anger. HB axis, autoantibodies complement, notably complement cascades. Studies show that ECTH reactive IgG autoantibodies may modulate HB axis stress response and are associated with antisocial behavior aggression. While complement cascades isn't extensively studied in aggression, inflammatory mellow implicates innate immune dysregulation. Complement factors often rise during inflammation and may indirectly relate. That is more seen in cardiovascular, neurodegenerative diseases, and cancer. The integrative study in the biopsychosocial integration model, biopsychosocial model integration, incorporate cortical thickness, personality pathology, and trauma exposure. The model reflected that thinner prefrontal and temporal cortices, executive and social emotional, a high antagonism, disinhibition in personality domains, as assaultiveness, trauma exposure, all independently contributed to lifetime physical aggression. Lifetime physical aggression, because all these are setting the biosystem, the cellular mechanism, that is, this is the normal, and the cell acting from this. For some red flags, so we have to be aware within interpersonal relationships, social networks, power dynamics, informal settings, for example. So all this, be aware of your body and tone of voice, and we sometimes we say the energy that you are putting in the place. All this consumption of your electrobiochemical over time. Subtle relational aggression, gossip, exclusion, undermining, often masked as professional but hostile. Power imbalance, allow instrumental aggression leverage as control. Cluster B traits like borderline personality disorder, fear of abandonment, antisocial personality disorder, callousness may manifest as volatile behaviors, boundary violation. Uh, some like with for family and friends, so some setting, rejection, hypersensitivity, overreaction to perceived criticism or exclusion, especially borderline personality disorders. So they are sensitive to criticism, to feedback, everything. They are not taking it with tolerance, so they are reacting to it. Intuitive withdrawal, responding emotionally with silent treatment, contempt, or relational sabotage. Escalation patterns, perceived slight, emotional reactivity, aggressive behaviors, reactive aggression. Chronic hostility under guise of concern, passive or relational aggression loop. It's a vicious loop because the pattern has been shaped already in your neural circuits. Enmeshment or triangulation, using third parties to manipulate social dynamics. With say, look, for example, in narcissistic abuse, the jumping monkeys. These are the one who are recruited to support the mastermind of breaking down, humiliating, bullying, intimidating, whatever they want to do to break down the character or the mind of the target over time. And sometimes it is only the schema has been hidden until the target leaves the place, or they can look for another target perceived as a threat. So the main thing, it is power dynamic and control and dominance. So boundary violations, emotional outburst, and blaming relational for perceived projection. Across the lifespan, look for patterns: early physical aggression, later relational or reactive aggression. Types of aggressions, said physical, relational, proactive versus reactive, clinical severity, it's intermittent explosive disorder. Personality intersection cluster B, for example, borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, most implicated affective dysregulation versus callousness. So if the aggressor understand that this person is hypersensitivity and affective dysregulation, they are going to focus on that, of increasing the dysregulation of the target. In environmental, immune, biological, trauma, cytokines, autoantibodies, HB axis, cortical structure, and immune dysregulation. Immune dysregulation, that this means that higher pro-inflammatory response, that is allostatic load, and excitotoxicity, that is chronic illness and psychiatric conditions, especially in the severe of the abnormal psychology like in schizophrenia, psychosis, and other chronic disorders. But it all occur with subtle, incremental over time. It doesn't happen one day. Red flags: projection sensitivity, boundary violation, relational manipulation, fidelity. Whenever aggression in place, if it is a pattern, that is a red flag. In communication, in interaction, even in the way the person walk toward you or addressing or communicating with you, that is a red flag. You're not going to change anyone. The one you need to take care for is you, how to be regulated. Complement cascade, not directly evidence. Immune inflammatory links to suggest potential indirect. That is when the advanced chronic conditions and started to see the severity of chronic inflammation. Aggression is multifaceted, ranging from overt physical violence to covert relational manipulation. Its expression and severity are shaped by personality trait, especially cluster B, developmental experiences, neurobiological vulnerabilities, including immune factors, situational context, recognizing red flags, particularly in social and power laden dynamics, requires attentiveness to rejection sensitivity, affective volatility, and relational boundary crossing. So that is what you need to take to pay attention to your rejection of sensitivity, affective volatility, and relational boundaries. And because this is exactly what the aggressor is looking for to manipulate and abuse and take advantage of. For example, I say schizophrenia and aggression. A clinical study found that T helper 17, that is in cardiovascular as well, T helper 17 related to cytokines, interleukin 17, interleukin 20. This is all pro-inflammatory cytokines. Interleukin 23 and TGF beta 1 associated with aggressive behavior and symptom severity in schizophrenia, whereas complement cascade C3 level were lower in more severe cases, suggesting a potential proactive role between C3, that is complement cascades, or dysregulation when it is reduced. BTSD and complement pathways. In BTSD, researchers noted that hyperactivation of the classical complement pathway, hypoactivation of the alternative pathway, and overactivation of the terminal pathway highlight complex pathway-specific involvement of complement in trauma-related pathology. It shows later with chronic illness and especially with the abnormal psychology, like in the psychosis, schizophrenia, and PTSD, and the cluster B of antisocial personality disorders and things like that, but mostly in schizophrenia and PTSD. Experimental models in stress and behavioral and social behavior and complement inhibition. Chronic stress and complement inhibition. Chronic stress induces social deficits and neuroinflammation. Systemic administration of a site-targeted complement inhibitor, C2, CRRY, which blocked the C3 activation, ameliorated the social behavior, impaired and reduced glia activation in both of prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. Prefrontal cortex, that is the attenuation, that is decision, that is your critical thinking, your problem solving, and all of that. And the hippocampus, I say the learning and the memory part of it. It serves more. A broader implication, these findings suggested that complement inhibition can modulate behavioral outcomes linked to stress-related inflammation. This opens potential therapeutic avenues for disorders where aggression, social deficits, and neuroinflammation intersect, though clinical translation remains in early stages. And in my discipline, health psychology, the call for translational psychology is so, translational science is so critical, and it's in need. There is a high deficit in this in this field, because it intersects multiple disciplines and make a narrative of the disorder or the disease, and what are the pathways, what are the alternatives, what are other modalities that can be integrated and present a new hope. They call it the science of hope, into a new modalities based on the complex environment and the complex diverse environment from the cross culture and culture intelligence perspective. So we see therapeutic modulations of complement pathways in conditions like stroke and other neurological injuries, timing and specificity of complement inhibition targeting C3A and C5A receptors have proven proactive in experimental settings. However, broad inhibition can sometimes impair beneficial recovery mechanisms, and treatment carry risks such as increased susceptibility to infections. Though early emerging data indicates complement cascades components are implicated in aggression-related behavior, especially via inflammation and neuroimmune pathways, future interventions may involve a targeted complement modulation, pending further validation. Anger management, like in CBT or DBT, cognitive behavior therapy, is the first line approach for managing anger, working on identifying triggers, reframing thoughts, using relaxation, problem solving, prefrontal cortex, and clearer communication. Dialectical behavior therapy focuses on emotional mindfulness, that is, regulation, aiding regulation of intense affect. Aggression replacement training, originally developed by for adolescents, social skills training, managing conflict, empathy, anger control training, the anger control chain, recognizing triggers, cues, reduction strategies, reminders, pro-social responses, and evaluation. Moral reasoning development, challenging thinking errors, perspective taking. So perspective taking and a challenging thinking error is sometimes and the ed block the way of the prefrontal cortex to fully process, increase the heightened stress response, and block the clarity. And then there is this pride, or this is stuckness in not admitting mistakes or errors, and it is hard to take it. So this, when we say this is a skill, this needs to, when it is a pattern, it has to be brought to the attention, and it requires the collaboration of the individual to work through this, because this is the growth mindset. This is the positive mechanism of shifting the way of thinking that no longer serve you, but it needs attention, it needs awareness, and it needs like validation from the person themselves that I want to work on that. And perspective taking, agree not to disagree. What about staying neutral? And I say, some say I am black or white. I said, okay, white. What is the gray area? We have to navigate the gray area, because maybe a perspective we need to take and be objective rather than subjective. Mood activation therapy, a blend of CBT, DBT, and ACTs, and the schema focused validation, and the brain work as well with the schemas. So Sherlock Holmes. MDT targets entrenched aggression, often in adolescents with multi-problem presentations like conduct disorders, trauma, and personality pathology. It reports a significant reduction in internalizing behavior and anger expression compared to traditional approaches. Parent management training focuses on altering parental behavior to manage child aggression using positive reinforcement, consistent limits, and behavior contingency systems, proven especially effective for early disruptive behavior through programs like BCIT, Triple P, and Incredible Years. School-based and preventive programs, universal intervention like a good behavior game or family school partnership delivered in early elementary settings can reduce later aggression and impulsivity. Notably, genetic moderators like BDNF variant may influence responsiveness. Nonviolent resistance interventions as well. This is family oriented. Support the caregivers in resisting aggressive youth behavior by building a supportive network and employing a non-punitive authority and persistent strategies without requiring child cooperation. The neurorehabilitation setting for READ model is staff training proven to reduce aggressive incidents and increase staff confidence in managing challenging behaviors. Across lifespan, early childhood emphasizes parent training, early intervention, and school-based prevention, tapping into neurodevelopmental plasticity. Adolescence for ART-MDT and family-based forms like NVR to address entrenched aggression, often tied to trauma or personality issues. Adult contexts utilize CBT, DBT, and staff-oriented models like RAID in clinical, institutional, and forensic populations. So, while formal case visions are rare in the sources, there are some interventions, like a child preschool, early school age, like 5-year-old exhibits frequent tantrum, physical aggression at home and school. So, parent management training, incredible years, teaches parents consistent reinforcement and calm limit setting to reduce aggression and improve child self-regulation. For second graders, shows impulsivity and peer conflict. School-based program like good behavior game, pulse universal, social emotional lessons, reduce aggression and improve long-term outcomes, academic engagement, and reduce the antisocial behavior. For adolescents, a complex violence risk. For 15 years old, conduct issues, trauma history, aggressive outbursts toward the caregivers, mood deactivation therapy, engaging youth and family around emotion linked cognitive moods, support durable reduction in aggression and emotional dysregulation. Another complementary or alternative NVR may support the caregivers to manage aggression without escalation, especially when adolescents resist treatment. For young adult, inpatient with frequent relational and physical aggression, CBT, DBT-based anger management, combined with staff training in RAID to institutionalize safe, non-escalating responses and reduce incidents. Another thing for case studies, we say across the lifespan, was a longitudinal prevention focused research, Chicago Youth Development Study, tracked the inner city boys over 2 decades. Key findings of the study: a strong family function buffered against the effects of community violence, reducing later aggression, early cognitive training, and the family support also demonstrated long-term prevention effect. The Compassionate School Project randomized school received a curriculum emphasizing compassion, social emotional learning, and healthy intervening early in school year to cultivate proactive traits. So for early childhood, school age compassion-based curriculum and family support serve as a primarily preventive frameworks. Adolescents, RT, MDT, and NVR offer structured, complexity-tailored approaches. Young adulthood and institutional settings, CBT, DBT, staff training, RAID, aid in managing behavior control and aggression more broadly. For example, 5 and 8 years old, the child exposed to community violence benefits from family strengthening programs, reducing early externalizing behaviors. Middle school 11 to 14 years old enrollment in compassionate school style, social emotional curriculum, foster empathy, reducing reactive aggression, and improving peer relationships. Adolescents from 15 to 18, persistent relational aggression and stress responses are addressed via mood deactivation therapy, MDT, leading to a reduction in aggression and anger expression. Young adulthood, 18 to 25, in an institutional settings or like a university or workplace, CBT based anger management and environmental support like mentorship mitigate aggressive responses during conflicting situations. Another gender focused programs for early childhood. One longitudinal study found that while boys display significantly higher physical aggression from age 3 to 5, both gender respond similarly well to interventions. Both showed significant reduction in aggressive behavior maintained at 1 to 2 years follow-ups. Another study with adolescents, 34 and 27 males and 27 females, noted that females exhibited significantly greater improvement through treatment than males, even though initial symptoms were similar. For in childhood ages 8 and 11, girls showed a higher baseline of relational aggression with stability over time, while boys started lower but declined relational aggression, predicted later depression in girls, and delinquency and risk taking in both. Though risk taking associated were more stronger for boys. Among clinically referred youth, both genders showed proactive and reactive aggression correlates differ. Males, reactive aggression linked to hyperactivity or impulsivity. Females, proactive aggression associated with early traumatic stress and lower verbal IQ. In social programs like social emotional programs and bullying prevention, the positive action program, school-wide social emotional initiatives for girls reduce the bullying and aggression related beliefs. Boys parents reported the reduction in bullying behavior. Overall violence rates dropped among students compared to control schools. Systemic reviews indicates emerging but limited evidence for intervention targeting relation and aggression in at-risk or incarcerated female youth. Training on managing aggressive behavior revealed the gender-specific outcomes for women. Post-training viewed aggression as more complex but less acceptable and gained self-confidence and self-efficacy. In men, although no shift in aggression perception, they reported improved self-efficacy like due to stereotype, consistent framing, physical aggression as masculine. In the study, 392 non-gender specific delinquency programs, only 6 reported gender specific outcomes. Among those, 5 showed equally positive results for boys and girls. And One notably benefited the girl more, one girl. Among programs effective for reducing aggression in girls, successful ones tend to be community based, combine parent training with social skill training. There is multi-stage developmental markers and trajectories. For example, a male, for example, exhibits frequent ages of 3 and 5, exhibits frequent physical aggression, hitting, pushing in the top 10 among peers, 10 in one male to female ratio. Family-based behavioral parent training focus on warmth, structure, and consistent limits. Notable reduction in physical aggression sustained at 1 to 2 years follow-up. In ages 8 to 11, physical aggression declines, but relational aggression emerges in early adolescence. Historical maternal harshness contributes to higher relational aggression. School-based social emotional programs, compassionate school positive action, improved social competence, and reduction in normatively aggressive behaviors. In ages 13 and 15, developing subtle but risky relational aggression and involvement in bullying. Targeted individuals with CBT addressing aggressive, impulsive, and social reasoning, modest improvement, with a noted need for additional motivational or family-based support. And especially with bullying, it has a trait, by the way, and it runs in the family. So, and it is downstream regulation, and rather than it is only cognitive, because with the cognitive, this is when the all the patterns or the male adaptive or the traits will take over or override any intervention. Um, uh, for uh, for female, for example, ages 3 and 5 display moderate physical aggression. Initially, same parent training model as in male. A reduction in aggression with potentially even stronger responsiveness than males. 8 to 11 in females, higher baseline relational aggression, stable over time, higher mother-child conflict, and maternal harsh control predict relational aggression onset. Introduction of relation skills, group and conflict resolutions training, stronger internalization of pro-social relational models. From age 13 to 15, persistent relational aggression, possible risk of depressive symptoms, gender-tailored relation aggression prevention programs with peer group therapy and mentorship. Reduction in relational aggression, improved emotional well-being. In ages 16 to 18, but still occasional aggression under stress, enhanced with trauma-informed cognitive behavioral group therapy, reinforcing relational mindfulness and coping strategies. Declining trend in aggression, better mood regulation, prevention, and depressive spiral. Gender matters, but context is critical. As I said, it's the neurobiology as a male or female. There are some differentiational factors, and the context in which the incident takes place is critical. We have to understand whatever behavior is taking place within its context. Physical aggression is much more common in young boys, while relational aggression is more prevalent and stable among girls into middle childhood and adolescence. Some evidence suggests that greater treatment gains in females for familiar baseline aggression levels. For example, hyperactivity predicts reactive aggression in boys, whereas trauma and low verbal ability predict proactive aggression in girls. Gender responsive programs like relational aggression focus combining community and parent skill training appear much more promising for girls. Gender responsive intervention content biological correlates of aggression across developmental stages, and the design of multi-wave longitudinal assessment. As I said, something as well. If we are not integrating sleep and brain waves, the oscillation, the synchronicity, and the brain mapping within the cortices, we may miss something within the developmental stage, and it may remain or like unnoticed till something like truly um, reactivated and brought it into light or brought it into light. Um, so, gender responsive content in aggression intervention, formally tailored content, girls often benefit more from programs emphasizing relation skills. They are nurture, and we have to understand that uh, the misunderstanding of what nurturing is mean for females, um, it came from a generation of they call it the slavery mindset that the female is considered of what service they are offering to the male figure. So they are an object, not a human. So it is based on what they can do for them, not what they can do, not the male can do for the female or what they can do for each other. So it is not a balanced or a compatible relationship. It is an ordinate and subordinate, or something like within the master and the slave. So this all come from intergenerational concept about nurturing and the perception of being a female as a source of services. So that by itself is gonna mess up lots of things, and perceptual and identity, self-esteem, confidence, and things like that. And that is what we like, the blocks that build the infrastructure for the person, that they understand who they are and who they are presenting in the world from early age. So there's not this identity conflict, or later on they inflict the dysfunctional dynamic onto themselves and leading to self-harm and harming others. So the projection of the societal structure may blind many things that has to take place. Girls often benefit from programs emphasizing on relational skills, emotional expression, and relationship repair. Boys tend to respond better to direct behavior skill building and status sensitive strategies. A study of educated adolescents age 15 found both boys and the girls organized into cluster of proactive and reactive aggression, but girls displayed higher physical and relational aggression, along with increased negative affect, anxiety, and empathy, suggesting a more emotionally embedded aggression profile. So that is when I understand a perceived reality, perceived stress, perceived threat, and perceived pain. In 20 studies, heritability of aggression was moderated to high 51 to 72% of both the genders, with the small sex differences, indicating both sexes benefit from early intervention, but environmental factors may differ. Parental hormonal influence, testosterone markers like TD, 2D and 4D have weak associations with aggression. Thus, intervention should remain flexible rather than biological deterministic. Emotional regulation system for HB axis responded differently to stress by sexes. Social rejection may elicit a stronger cortisol response in female, while males may display blunted stress response associated with antisocial behavior. So, relation focus modules for girls emphasize empathy, conflict resolution, and understanding social norms. Behavioral and self regulation skills for boys focus on impulse control, assertive, not aggressive, problem solving, and peer negotiation. Emotion regulation across gender, mindfulness, stress awareness, and psychological coping or breathing are universal, but can, and this is all somatic experiences, so, but can connect to the mind and the body, but can be tailored to, for example, coping with rejection in girls versus managing provocation in boys. Context specific scenarios use relatable gender balanced examples, emotional peer conflict versus competitive challenge. And the modern life increases the competitiveness that we have to race against one another, against, not with one another. So no, we all complete the race. No, it's like again, that dynamic. What dynamic is taking place? Preschool onset, boys are as young as age 3 are roughly 5 times more likely to be in the high physical aggression class than girls. Yet both show similar correlates when aggression is present. 20 studies across ages reveal aggression irritability is high for both genders, with slightly environmental differences emerging later. Temperament linkage by 12-month activity and aggression correlates in boys significantly. Girls show this correlation significantly later by 24 months, with greater influence from non-shared environments. Brain structure, adolescents show sex-specific asymmetries. In females, increased hippocampal volume correlated with overt aggression, unlike prior male-focused findings suggesting different neurodevelopmental trajectories. Male amygdala grow over a longer period and end up larger. In girls, development occurs faster but stops sooner, impacting emotional reactivity and aggression regulation differentiation. HB axis responses, females may show more prolonged cortisol response to certain stressors like social rejection, while males may show blunted stress response tied to aggression risk. Timing matters. Boys show earlier phenotype association between activity and aggression. Girls' aggression seems more environment influenced as they developed. Structure and functional neurobiological patterns, for example, the amygdala, the hippocampal, differ by sex, influencing aggression expression and response to intervention. Girls may be more sensitive to social rejection biologically. Boys may display aggression linked to diminished psychological stress response. Like you have to understand what approach I have to take to track aggression trajectories, biological correlates, and intervention impacts with a gender lens. So multiple parameters we have to take care. The tracking aggression trajectories, biological correlates, and the intervention impacts with a gender specific. Um, the follow up, the training of the parent and teachers, um, sampling for HB axis, salivary cortisol, structure MRI scanning or fMRI. So all these observational assessments, um, parent quality of the relationship, peer relationships, stress exposure, all these are factors that have to be taken in place when understanding what I am gonna understand about the type or the category of aggression that hinder the quality of life and increase susceptibility to higher risk behaviors. Um, So we have to take like in consideration relational focus, the gender response, content, use relational focused and emotional regulation modules for girls, behavioral control and structure oriented modules for boys, mapping for the, the aggression activity from early childhood, brain structure differences like an amygdala and hippocampus, stress sensitivity. How can we compare the biological moderation with the intervention timing or the timing matter? We have to understand that aggression is heterogeneous. Not all children follow the same pattern. Some escalate, others desist. So some include the physical, emotional, reactive, proactive forms. So we have to pay attention to the biological, the psychological, the social, and environmental, with gender specific. Another things was we pay attention to as well, within the context of the incidents, we have to include parent, teacher, and self-report, or the the child or the adolescent's narrative of the incidents, based on their gender, cortisol reactivity, parenting quality, and the observation model that is being adopted, and relational stress and peer conflicts. If we understand, like, we have to like to talk on the human behavior from this, instead of what I am seeing, what I am noticing, but why I am perceiving this, and what message and what message it is communicating, and what it will teach me. So from this perspective, we're going to understand that there are components leading to what you see, but I'd like to understand one step at a time, in within the framework of healthy relationships, how they look like, how to model it, what alternative models to present these healthy relationships. If you see that there is there is a persistent on repeating the same scenario, understand that there is a pathological state for this. So this went from intervention, this is a disease, a state of disease. So I stated from the beginning that the mind body connection in your core, the central nervous system. The central nervous system regulates emotion and behavioral responses via the complex interplay among brain regions, neurotransmitters, neuroendocrine feedback loop. This regulation in these systems often manifests in impaired emotional regulation, heightened stress response, and neurotoxic damage, contributing to the psychopathology. That is when the manifestation of the disorder or the disease. The labeling and the diagnosis, these are the latest stages of the manifestation. This is when everything like proving 4 years, 4 decades, and then it is until 99 of the projection. It has been being identified officially. So prevention, uh, prevention is a better cure. So like preventing from early age is the best way to go. Once we build this awareness and understanding, I think the person, once they have been aware and understanding of what health means, majority will say, I don't want to be the one I was yesterday. I want to, we call it deconstruct and construct, and this takes time and collaboration with the right formula. So for example, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function, impulse control, decision making, emotion regulation, among others. This regulation leads to impaired top-down control over subcortical structures. Hypoactivation linked to poor inhibition and increased impulsive reactive aggression. The amygdala, Center for Threat Detection and Emotional Salience, hyperactivation leads to exaggerated fear, anxiety, reactive aggression. Amygdala overreactivity correlates with heightened cortisol response, increasing allostatic load. And allostatic loads who understand that when one understands that hippocampus involved in memory, stress regulation through negative feedback on HB axis. Chronic stress causes hippocampal atrophy, shrinking, impairing regulation and promoting excitotoxicity. Understand your excitotoxicity ratio, muscle cortisol, glutamate, the excitatory guys. Anterior cingulate cortex integrates cognitive and emotional information. Sorry. Dysregulated ACC, a function linked to poor error detection, emotional conflict, and impulsivity. Hypothalamus controls the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, pivotal in stress hormone regulation. Chronic activation leads to dysregulated cortisol release and systematic allostatic load. The central nervous system dysregulation and allostatic load, allostasis or the allostatic load. The central nervous system mediates a process by which the body achieves stability through physiological changes. Allostatic load, cumulative wear and tear, the rupture from chronic stress and dysregulated central nervous system response. Brain contribution to allostatic load, dysregulated amygdala and prefrontal cortex circuits cause exaggerated stress response. Hippocampal and prefrontal atrophy impair negative feedback to HB axis, persistent cortisol elevation. Chronic cortisol exposure promotes neuroinflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and systemic disease. Excitotoxicity and central nervous system dysregulation. Excitotoxicity refers to neural injury, death caused by excessive activation of glutamate receptors, mainly NMDA receptors, leading to increased intracellular calcium and oxidative stress. And I explained oxidative stress and NMDA receptors and how the glutamatergic pathways in other videos. Brain regions vulnerable, hippocampus and cortex are particularly susceptible to glutamate excitotoxicity. Chronic stress increases glutamate release and impairs glutamate reuptake, enhancing excitotoxic risk, and goes into your tissue and muscles. Yeah. So if you see like you are like you cannot move or anything, yeah, the chronic fatigue syndrome and the burnout, it can lead gradually to that. Excitotoxicity contributes to neurodegeneration, mood disorders, cognitive deficits, linked to depressive states, PTSD, and aggression via impaired synaptic plasticity. Dysregulated central nervous system circuits heightened anxiety, depression, impulsivity, aggression, persistent allostatic load, and excitotoxic damage, exacerbate cognitive impairment and emotional dysregulation. Mental states often show altered neurotransmission, dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, and inflammatory markers. So to sum up this, prefrontal cortex, executive function inhibition, impact impulse control, loss aggression, excitotoxicity, impaired inhibition, chronic stress response, amygdala, emotional salience and threat, hyperactivity, fear, aggression, high cortisol, stress sensitivity, increased allostatic load, hippocampus, memory, stress regulation, impact, atrophy, memory loss, decreased HB axis feedback, sustained cortisol excitotoxicity, anterior cingulate conflict monitoring in the mediator, emotional dysregulation, dysfunction, and poor regulation contributes to stress and excitotoxicity. Hypothalamus HB axis control, dysregulated cortisol secretion, central to chronic stress and allostatic load. The prefrontal cortex diminished regulation of limbic structure, increased impulsivity and aggression. Amygdala hyperactivity correlates with heightened cortisol release, contributing to increased allostatic load. Chronic stress induced glutamate excitotoxicity damages the hippocampus, impairing memory and HB axis regulation. Dysregulated HB axis activity elevates systemic cortisol, which drives neuroinflammation and contributes to depressive and aggressive phenotypes. Some said don't speak about the disease and things like that and what happened in the rapture. I understand that. There are some would say false positivity, that like everything is fine, everything okay, but everything is shifting in near electroby when incident occur. The true dysregulation shows under pressure, under stress, and everything. If the person say my false positivity doesn't serve me, I am pretending everything fine, but it has never been fine. So I have to work on that. What habits, what routines, what type of changes I want to do, or I want to take a proactive active with it, that I will collaborate with myself, that I want to feel much better under stress, under pressure, or when my trauma has been provoked or being taken advantage of. How can I work on more stable, more regulated, more aligned central nervous system? So you are not taking for like the rumination, the the emotional flooding, the aggression, the impulsivity, the activity. No, you know these monsters exist. And because of the dysregulated central nervous system, that is why the zombie are having a party. So what you need is understanding what regulate my, and everybody is different. It depends on the duration, severity, frequencies, and pace, time, place, persons. All these factors I take it into my considerations, and I create the scenario so that I am gonna do this with grace and understanding that it is a progress and or a work in progress. So you are working in your own central nervous system regulation with the right nutrients, with the sleep, right sleep, right amount of sleep or the sleep habits or sleep hygiene, with eliminating the understand your triggers and eliminate them, and understand who is provoking them, or are they provoking it with intention to get a response from me, that is why it feeds on them, or it happened like accidentally or frequently, or like there is a space when they happen. And you are going to be your own detective. Understand you are your own detective. You're using your antenna, anterior cingulate cortex. Navigate, and understand exactly how far your central nervous system is dysregulated. What triggers you fast, because your aggressor is studying you and understanding the schema or the novelty of when this take place, this will happen. When this take place, this is, it's incremental. It's incremental. So you are fearfully and wonderfully made, but you have to understand how far your central nervous system is regulated. That is when the same pattern that used to infuse too much allostatic load on your body and excitotoxic load in your body is no longer being activated like before. So you are started to understand the cues, and you're taking from the environment, and you understand your breath, your breath, your obligation to take care of yourself. Number one, you cannot put the oxygen mask on somebody and still. So, and that is what is first aid. Put the oxygen mask on you first, but then when life happens, you see that all this dysregulated, and the cultural or social culture or whatever beliefs have been you trained on is pushing themselves, and whatever you say is not matching what you do. And this is when you say, oh wow. So that is when because under pressure the cortisol is taking place, blocking the prefrontal cortex. So that is a hindering clarity and the right decision. So pay attention to that. What is the aggressor goal from triggering your trauma, from triggering your allostatic or the sympathetic response, and acting from hypervigilant or being aggressive, as it's stated that. And this is part of aggression, but it expresses itself in multiple phases. So we say dysregulated HB axis, that is, oh my goodness, that is your body functioning. Axis activity elevates the systemic cortisol, which drives neuroinflammation and contributes to depressive and aggressive phenotypes. Understand, say, God, teach me. Neuroimmune complement cascades integration with central nervous system dysregulation. The neuroimmune system consists of brain, and we understand that the brain has its own immune system. Your immune system is all your body, but it has, especially with microglia and astrocytes, and astrocytes is it's correlated with cancer as well. But you have to understand that the glia cells, the glue that stick the neuron together, this understand what aggression does to your neurobiology and your life and health. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Right now, I'm saying every infusion of aggressive behavior or negative emotion, is it worth it? On the other side, what does it serve? Look for the beneficiary from provocation. So the neuroimmune system consists of brain. Your brain has its own immune system. So, okay. Brain resident immune cells, microglia, astrocytes, and the peripheral immune signals that influence central nervous system function. Central nervous system dysregulation often involves neuroinflammation, where activated microglia release pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 1 beta, tumor necrosis factor alpha, altering neural excitability and neurosynaptic plasticity. Chronic neuroinflammation exacerbates allostatic load by maintaining HB axis hyperactivation and impairing hippocampal neurogenesis. The complement system, traditionally a peripheral innate immune defense, also operates in the central nervous system to modulate synaptic pruning and neuroinflammation. And that is so important in early childhood and adolescence, the highest phases of pruning. That is when the neurocircuits are reshaping. So, your body's trying to do the trimming. Your body knows that it's a systematic. It's amazing if you understand that. So here, excessive complement activation, C1q, C3, leads to inappropriate synaptic elimination, neurodegeneration, and can promote excitotoxicity via microglia overactivation. And there is a test microglia activation panel if you'd like to understand, and that will give you a perspective. Dysregulated complement activity is linked to psychiatric disorders characterized by emotional dysregulation and aggression, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. So elevated neuroinflammatory markers and complement proteins correlate with increased impulsive and reactive aggression, decreased top-down prefrontal control. In animal models, to show microglia complement mediates synaptic remodeling, affects social behavior and aggression. Human studies indicate that elevated cytokines and complement components in cerebrospinal fluid or serum associated with hostile and aggressive behaviors in mood and personality disorders. NMDA receptor antagonist like ketamine, memantine, reduce the glutamate. This is glutamatergic pathway targeting clinical intervention, excitotoxicity, and show promise in treating mood disorders with aggression component. Anti-inflammatory agents, minocycline, reduce microglia activation and excitotoxic neural damage. Psychosocial intervention, mindfulness, CBT, reduce HB axis hyperactivity, lowering allostatic load. Glucocorticoid receptor antagonist, mifepristone modulate cortisol signaling and potentially normalizing HB axis function. Exercise and diet can attenuate systemic inflammation and neuroimmune dysregulation. At the same time, understand your allostatic load, your excitotoxicity, and understand what type of exercise is right for you, because some exercise can increase the excitotoxicity or the excitatory of glutamate and cortisol. So we have to understand that which cortisol and glutamate and histamine. So what type of activity I want to do to eliminate the pro-inflammatory, cytokines. Experimental drugs targeting complement components like C1q inhibitors, anti-C3 therapies are under investigation for neurodegenerative diseases, may extend to psychiatric conditions marked by aggression and neuroinflammation. The main thing from the hypothesis or the intervention is to reduce apparent synaptic pruning and neuroinflammation driven excitotoxicity linked to aggression phenotype gene environment interaction. So a framework integrating neuroimmune markers with aggression phenotypes. Aggression is a complex, multidimensional behavior influenced by genetic, neurobiology, environment, and immune system interaction. Neuroimmune markers like cytokines, complement proteins are increasingly recognized as biological substrates linking to stress, central nervous system dysregulation, and aggression. For example, the multidimensional aggression scale capture overt aggression, physical and verbal acts, covert aggression, manipulation and relational, reactive, impulsive, and proactive planned aggression. Peripheral markers, pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 1 beta, complement components like C1q, C3, C4, microglia activation markers like STREM2 in cerebrospinal fluid, neuroendocrine stress markers, cortisol and DHEA. Central markers are accessible neuroimaging or cerebrospinal fluid, microglia and activation, beta scan, brain complement expression. Age developmental stage, childhood, adolescence is important, adulthood, in understanding the manifestation of aggression, psychosocial stress, exposure, trauma, socioeconomic status, family environment, personality disorder clusters, ABC traits, sex gender differences. Some hypotheses are saying individuals with high baseline of pro-inflammatory cytokines and complement activation will exhibit trajectory increasing reactive aggression. Those with blunted neuroimmune response may fall into the low stable aggression class. Early life stress moderates the relationship between neuroimmune markers and aggression trajectory. Gender moderates immune aggression relationship, female showing stronger neuroimmune aggression, coupling in relational aggression. So we have to understand some questions, some researcher questions. What is the relationship between neuroimmune activity and aggression development? Are specific neuroimmune markers predictive of aggression onset, persistent, or remission? How do developmental stage, sex, gender, and environmental stressors moderate these relationships? Another thing we have to pay attention to as well when we understand the type and the dynamic of aggression within its context is to explore the bidirectional relationship between neuroimmune markers and aggression across waves. So brainwaves are important because they present a pattern and they correlate with the electrobiochemical activity under like under pressure, under provocation, under stress, within a specific environment or setting or person or place or a space. So memory, triggering memory or things like that. So there is still from the translational medicine, is still in early I said early phases, and it requires more understanding what exactly we are looking for, and where are the gaps, and from multidisciplinary team views and the adopting the right statistical software and models, the right models in study design, in identifying phenotypes and immune signatures, for example. We have to understand all of this, so it requires a lab setting, and it requires like a whole discipline for from translation and medicine to understand the core factor of aggression, what its indicators on the whole lifespan of the phenomena of the human condition and human behavior, and how it manifests through the stages and phases of development, the environment, the interaction, the experiences, the puberty, especially for adolescents, the pruning and the hormonal changes. Women goes through severe changes through their life, so there is a lot of burden of emotional and electrobiochemical unspoken and unexpressed, and it add more to their allostatic load, gender specific. So we have to understand that we have to uh, be open to understand exactly what is happening internally that is impacting the external world. Today, I brought only the correlation or the intersectionality between the clusters, the aggression, its types, and environmental factors, the biomarkers, again, and its impact and how it manifests, the immune system of the complement cascades, and how it can present a future perspective of intervention when we understand that through the developmental stages of the human lifespan, how aggression trajectories can manifest, what type of interventions, and it is not only the individual approach, it's a family community approach. We heal together, because the message I am presenting in the world, it can carry life and it can carry others. So which side you choose? It's a matter of choice and a matter of approaching into the world. I am into life healing perspective, or this suppressive destructive force that um, some already are designed for this, and we have no we cannot change anyone. We cannot change anyone. All what we change ourselves. If you see yourself as so sensitive to what has been going on in your environment and how over time it impacts your allostatic load. You have to say, I have to bring awareness to myself. What is my role? What is my responsibility? What am I contributing to this? And I started to develop what changes I want to take place. And it doesn't matter, like if you are expressing your approach of a change and it is not accepted or respected, that is a closure for you. So you have to understand that you don't have to have the celebrity welcome when you choose to start to modify and to change for the better you, the healthy you, and more reconciling with the self first, more in alignment with the self first before you become in alignment with the world once again. You cannot give from empty cup, so you have to work on filling your own cup emotionally, physically, psychologically, mentally. And your mental health starts from your health, body physiological state. So because if I am perceive all everything, no filter, I'm allowing everything to consume and observe on a cellular level and shift the paradigm of your biomarkers, your excitotoxicity ratio and things like that. The cell doesn't know that you, it is it's a perceptual. No, it's happening. It is what you made your body experience. That is why you say live the experience. It's not what had happened to you. It is what changes occurred when this happened within you, and what we call it the rapture. That is the wear and tear. That is the pain, the physiological pain. That is the diagnosis that has been given. So you have to understand that you are a partner with, when you say we are fearfully and wonderfully made, but you have to take responsibility. You have to take accountability. What am I allowing, and what I am filtering, and what I am able to say no to? So we are not like the superhero. The media has shaped some of the perspective, but however, we are living in deep fake. So pay attention. Not everything that is been demonstrating on the screen is real. It has a function, it has a motive, and look for the beneficiary. And the main thing, restore your peace. Uh, Make the changes with grace and embrace your limitations. So you are not gonna save the world. Understand that, work on yourself step one step at a time, no matter where you are or whatever you have. Start one step at a time. Understand that everything is possible. Everything is possible with God, but we have to put this effort. We have everything. We have to put this intentionality that we would like the better you from today and from now on. I hope everyone will take this day as a breath of air that is giving you another further insight into the better you and how you are going to proceed from there. God is good. God never meant that the suffering will last, and it comes to teach us, to strengthen us, and to allow us to understand the miraculous creation within us that God has already made, and it is freely given to you. It is freely given to you, but you are going to be held accountable for it, for every decision you are making and every choice you are taking into your day. From moment to minute moment, we are making constant choices and decisions. But what is manifesting that can bring an everlasting impact on your life and on your day. So choose wisely and start to be aware. Start to be aware. We're not living in utopia. Start to be aware. Understand what aggression means from the root bottom. Understand aggression. What does it mean by aggression from the root bottom? And what tapestry it presented in all multifaceted ways. And we experience it in every single day. So, but how we are going to understand it, we'll learn from it. That is up to you. And it depends on your level of training. So I leave this and hopefully I will see what's next with this topic because it's really fascinating and it brings me to every core from the and then from the bottom up to the top, the bottom up and the top down. So understand it, it's in everything and everywhere in every dynamic, but I have to understand the nature of it within its context. I wish you well and I wish you are gonna have a better day for tomorrow and um, understand you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Peace.